Hey, first grade friends. Today I'm going to read another Kevin Henkes book. I told you about him last week. He is both an author and an illustrator, and he's really one of my favorites. And he was here in Portland last year, and I got to meet him. I was so excited. So this book is called Chrysanthemum, and it's about a little girl starting school. Things don't really go her way. Here she is as a baby. And if you don't know what a chrysanthemum is, it's a kind of flower, and this is what it looks like. Just like this. Sometimes kids say, hey, that's a bunch of bananas, but it's not. It's a chrysanthemum. The day she was born was the happiest day in her parents' lives. She's perfect, said her mother. Absolutely, said her father. And she was. She was absolutely perfect. Her name must be everything she is, said her mother. Her name must be absolutely perfect, said her father. And it was. Chrysanthemum. Her parents named her Chrysanthemum. And look, there are chrysanthemums all over her blanket. Chrysanthemum grew and grew and grew. And when she was old enough to appreciate it, Chrysanthemum loved her name. She loved the way it sounded when her mother woke her up, and she loved the way it sounded when her father called her for dinner, and she loved the way it sounded when she whispered it to herself in the bathroom mirror. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum loved the way her name looked when it was written with ink on an envelope. She loved the way it looked when it was written with icing on her birthday cake, and she loved the way it looked when she wrote it herself with her big fat orange crayon. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum thought her name was absolutely perfect, and then she started school. On the first day, Chrysanthemum wore her sunniest dress and her brightest smile. She ran all the way. Hooray, said Chrysanthemum, school! But when Mrs. Chudd took roll call, everyone giggled upon hearing Chrysanthemum's name. Here's the teacher, Mrs. Chudd, and here are all the kids. Don, Eve, Lois, Al, Les, Kay, Max, Sue, Bill, Pat, Tom, Sam, Ken, Joe, Rita, Victoria, and Chrysanthemum. Why do you think they might be laughing? You'll find out. It's so long, said Joe. It scarcely fits on her name tag, said Rita, pointing. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria. You're named after a flower. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and informed Mrs. Chudd that Chrysanthemum's name was spelled with 13 letters. That's exactly half as many letters as there are in the entire alphabet, Victoria explained. Thank you for sharing that with us, Victoria, said Mrs. Chudd. Now put your head down. If I had a name like yours, I'd change it, Victoria said, as the students lined up to go home. I wish I could, thought Chrysanthemum miserably. Welcome home, said her mother. Welcome home, said her father. School is no place for me, said Chrysanthemum. My name is too long. It scarcely fits on my name tag, and I'm named after a flower. Oh, pish, said her mother. Your name is beautiful and precious and priceless and fascinating and winsome, said her father. It's everything you are, said her mother. Absolutely perfect, said her father. Chrysanthemum felt much better after her favorite dinner, macaroni and cheese with ketchup, and an evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. Parcheesi is a board game that they're playing. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that her name was Jane. It was an extremely pleasant dream. I think she'd like to have a shorter name, and I think she'd like it to not be a flower. The next morning, Chrysanthemum wore her most comfortable jumper. She walked to school as slowly as she could. She dragged her feet in the dirt. Chrysanthemum, 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 she wrote. She even looks like a flower, said Victoria, as Chrysanthemum entered the playground. Let's pick her, said Rita, pointing. Let's smell her, said Joe. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and said, "A chrysanthemum is a flower. It lives in the garden with worms and other dirty things." "Thank you for sharing that with us, Victoria," said Mrs. Chudd. "Now put your head down." "I just cannot believe your name," Victoria said as the students lined up to go home. "Neither can I," thought Chrysanthemum miserably. "Welcome home," said her mother. "Welcome home," said her father. "School is no place for me," said Chrysanthemum. "They said I even look like a flower. They pretended to pick me and smell me." "Oh, pish," said her mother. "They're just jealous." "And envious and begrudging and discontented and jaundiced," said her father. "Who wouldn't be jealous of a name like yours?" said her mother. "After all, it's absolutely perfect," said her father. Chrysanthemum felt a trifle better after her favorite dessert, chocolate cake with buttercream frosting, and another evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. I don't know about you, but I think chocolate cake always makes things a little bit better. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that she really was a chrysanthemum. She sprouted leaves and petals. Victoria picked her and plucked the leaves and petals one by one until there was nothing left but a scrawny stem. It was the worst nightmare of Chrysanthemum's life. Chrysanthemum wore her outfit with 7 pockets to school the next morning. She loaded the pockets with her most prized possessions and her good luck charms. Chrysanthemum took the longest route possible to school. She stopped and stared at each and every flower. "Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum," the flowers seemed to say. That morning, the students were introduced to Mrs. Twinkle, the music teacher. Her voice was like something out of a dream, as was everything else about her. The students were speechless. They thought Mrs. Twinkle was an indescribable wonder. They went out of their way to make a nice impression. Mrs. Twinkle led the students in scales. Then she assigned roles for the class musical. Victoria was chosen as a dainty fairy queen. Rita was chosen as a spiffy butterfly princess. Joe was chosen as the all-important pixie messenger, and Chrysanthemum was chosen as a daisy. "Chrysanthemum's a daisy, chrysanthemum's a daisy," Joe, Rita, and Victoria chanted, thinking it was wildly funny. Chrysanthemum wilted. Oh, I forgot to tell you, if you don't know what wilted means, it means you kind of go like this, like, think of a flower when it hasn't had enough water, it kind of falls over. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. "What's so humorous?" asked Miss Twinkle. Humorous means, what's so funny? "Chrysanthemum," was the answer. "Her name is so long," said Joe. "It scarcely fits on her name tag," said Rita, pointing. "I'm named after my grandmother," said Victoria, "and she's named after a flower." "My name is long," said Mrs. Twinkle. "It is," said Joe. "My name would scarcely fit on a name tag," said Mrs. Twinkle. "It would," said Rita, pointing. "And," said Mrs. Twinkle, "I'm named after a flower, too." "You are?" said Victoria. "Yes," said Mrs. Twinkle. "My name's Delphinium. Delphinium Twinkle." So Delphinium's a different kind of flower. "And if my baby's a girl, I'm considering Chrysanthemum as a name. I think it's absolutely perfect." Chrysanthemum could scarcely believe her ears. She blushed, she beamed, she bloomed. "Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum." Do you see her now? Why do you think she's feeling better? Do you think it's because the teacher has a lot in common with her? They share long names. They both have flower names. And the teacher said her name was absolutely perfect. So she's feeling a lot better. Joe, Rita, and Victoria looked at Chrysanthemum longingly. Guess what they want now? They want flower names too. "Call me Marigold," said Joe. "I'm Carnation," said Rita, pointing. "My name is Lily of the Valley," said Victoria. Those are all different flower names. Chrysanthemum did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She knew it. You see how much better she feels? Epilogue. So the epilogue is what happens after the story's over. Overall, the class musical was a huge success. Chrysanthemum was absolutely perfect as a daisy. Victoria made the only mistake. She completely forgot her lines as a dainty fairy queen. Chrysanthemum thought it was wildly funny, and she giggled throughout the entire Dance of the Flowers. Eventually, Mrs. Twinkle gave birth to a healthy baby girl, and of course, she named her Chrysanthemum. There's the little baby. I really love that story, and it's such a fun way to start the year. So Chrysanthemum is a very long name, but it's a great name. And tell me what you think happened. Why do you think those kids were being mean to her? What do you think they should have done instead? I'm not going to say what I think they are, but I want you to tell me, what do you think those girls are? How are they behaving toward her? Did you notice also that I told you that Kevin Henkes loves to use mice as his characters? So here they are again. Most of his books are mice, you'll see as we keep reading. Anyway, I hope you liked that book, and please tell me what you think those girls were acting like toward her, and maybe what they should have done differently. All right, you can draw a picture or just tell me what you think. Happy reading.